A man condemned in his own image. What adaptations fail to see in Captain Jas Hook. Welcome back to the YouTube home of Peter Pan Lore and Peter Pan Facts with me, your Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist, using my Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist brain and knowledge to bring you fun facts, lore and trivia, talk about the world of the Neverland, the story of Peter Pan. Sergei is still here. Today we're bringing you quite a long video essay, so grab yourself a snack, grab a drink and have a sit down, because yeah, this one's going to be a long one. So today's video is all about the character of Captain James Hook. If you spent any time at all on this channel or over on the PeterPanLore TikTok page, you'll probably have heard me call Captain Hook melancholy and nuanced. And these are things we're going to dive into in this video because I want to explore the man himself and how adaptations have been failing him. Because Captain Hook, along with Wendy Darling, is probably the most misinterpreted character in any adaptation of the story of Peter Pan. Part 1. What is given in adaptations? The imposing figure clad in red, wielding an iron claw, is an image that many of you will know. Disney is responsible for quite a lot of that, as their animated movie from the 1950s was a lot of people's first introduction to the character. Though there have been many other adaptations over the years, on stage and on screen. So let's gather together the most popular of them, the most common adaptations that people have heard of, and compare their versions of Captain Hook to the original. What do they have in common? What are most adaptations telling us about the pirate? For this discussion, we're going to be talking about his character, his personality alone. We're going to try, as hard as I possibly can, to avoid talking about his physical appearance, mostly because it's not particularly relevant to this video, and also because I am working on a Captain Hook costume history video. That'll be coming later this year. So we've done Tinkerbell, we've done Peter Pan, we will do The Lost Boys, and we will do Captain Hook. So because that's coming soon, we'll talk about aesthetics in that video. For now, in this video, we're just going to focus on his personality. So, what do adaptations of the Peter Pan story give us in terms of the pirate's character? The most common seems to be evil, and not always with a great deal of thought behind it. Mostly just, Hook is bad guy, make him bad. And the other most popular seems to be fool, or more accurately, laughing stock. Let's get into this then. Now, there is not time to get into every single adaptation of this story. We will be here for far too long. So instead, I'm going to talk about the main three that always get brought up when people talk about Captain Hook, which is the 1953 Disney animated classic, the 2003 film with Jason Isaacs playing the role, and the 1991 film Hook with Dustin Hoffman. In the 1950s Disney animated film, Captain Hook has very little substance. He's either grinning a wicked grin as he tricks Tinkerbell and plants an explodey device, sorry YouTube censors, or he is a snivelling fool, blubbering as he dangles off a rock or screaming in a silly voice as he tries to outswim the crocodile. When we first meet him, Captain Hook has been discussed by his crew, who are annoyed that he kept them on the Neverland while Hook plays Ring Around the Rosie with Peter Pan. The man then appears, smoking a cigar and poring over a map. His first line is, "Blast that Peter Pan," swiftly followed by a comedic scouring of the map for the Lost Boys' hideout. He talks to Smee about persuasion techniques they could use on Tiger Lily, such as boiling in oil, keel hauling, and marooning. Then he shoots down a pirate who interrupts his thoughts by singing. He does have scary moments, such as yelling at Smee and shooting his own crew, but they are all immediately chased with moments the audience is clearly meant to laugh at, like the entire shaving a seagull's butt scene, or how his moustache twitches every time the crocodile's ticking nearby. And then, of course, Hook cowers and cries for Smee to save him. Even at a place called Skull Rock, with a captured Tiger Lily, Hook's imposing terror is interrupted constantly by jabs, sometimes literal, and actions we are shown through the music and the script are designed to be funny, and always at the pirate's expense. We laugh at him, never with him. He has his trousers pulled down by the crocodile just after being reduced to tears as he's called a codfish on a hook. Even when chased by the crocodile, he is comedically bouncing and squealing for Smee. Then in the next scene, Captain Hook is sat huddled on his ship with a hot water bottle strapped to his head, sneezing while wrapped in a blanket. He then gets hit in the face by a hammer by Smee, and then he gets boiling water poured over him. Then he does get to become cunning again, as they make the plan to trick Tinkerbell into betraying Peter. And this lasts all the way through the scene where he talks to Tinkerbell, which is a welcome relief. He gets to continue to be sinister as he plants the explodey ball, hello YouTube censors, in the hideout. But the offer to let the captured children join his crew is played more light-hearted. When the explosion bursts, Hook removes his hat and says, "So passes a worthy opponent," giving him a rare few seconds of depth. It is undermined once again by comedic slapstick and jokes soon though. As Hook and Peter fight, Peter pulls the pirate's hat apart, stabs him in the rear, has him tied up in his own flag, and ultimately sends him crashing to the crocodile with all the children jeering, "Hook is a codfish," and making the pirate captain say it too. His final line is then, "Smee!" as he hurtles away across the water, chased by the crocodile over the horizon. What are we given in Disney's animated classic then? What do we learn about this character? He has a crocodile hunting him, and he's scared of it. He gets Smee to rescue him a lot. He is trying to kill Peter Pan. He will kill his own men and try to drown people. But he isn't really scary because look, isn't he silly and foolish, and he keeps tripping and falling over. And look how ridiculous, he gets his clothes pulled off him. Isn't it funny and silly? Haha. Do we learn what his motives are? No. Do we learn why he hates Peter so much? No. Do we learn what he thinks about good form, which is mentioned, like, once? No. Overall, Disney presents us with a very flat, one-dimensional character. A foolish villain trying to be bad, but not to be taken seriously, because look how foolish he is. In the 2003 live-action film, Hook gets a little more bite, but ultimately still faces the same issues. He gets fabulous moments like strapping his right arm up and attaching the claw, showing the pain the man is in. We see an Eton tattoo on his arm. Yes, I know I said no aesthetics, I'm sorry. And he speaks some lines which reference his past, his thoughts, and his feelings. But these moments are fleeting and immediately overlooked in favour of the next scene. The "fool we're supposed to condemn" trope is prevalent here too. At first it's subtle, as we fly around the ship with Peter, challenging the captain to hit him as the cannon fires. It's light-hearted fun to torment the enemy. But then they hit their own mast, and it becomes very abundantly clear that this is not a villain we're supposed to even really fear at all. The first time we see Hook in the 2003 film, he smashes a ticking clock, and we see a dishevelled man sitting at a desk looking groggy. His first line is, "I was dreaming, Smee." He says he was dreaming of being a magnanimous fellow who was full of forgiveness for Peter Pan. He talks of the claw being a blessing that can be used for disemboweling and ripping throats. Smee suggests that Pan did him a favour then by cutting off the hand. Hook advances on him and speaks of the ever-chasing crocodile, shouting, "You call that a favour?" as he claws close to Smee's face. We see what could be a tender moment of Hook caring for Smee, or a comedic bit of relief from the shouting, where Hook uses his claw to push Smee's glasses back up his nose. The next time we see Hook is the Long Tom scene, where he is firing the cannon at Peter Pan, who is flying around, they hit their own mast, and all that good work to make him seem scary is rather undone. Then he recovers some of his fearsomeness as Hook interrogates Tiger Lily, though that is somewhat spoiled by the comedy of the princess's clear insults and Smee failing or pretending to translate it to "she says sorry but no." We claw some of it back, pun absolutely intended, when Hook steps outside while chaining Tiger Lily and the boys to the rock to await for Peter Pan to come to the rescue. Wendy is hiding and she spots him, and we have a marvellous moment where the narrator describes that she is not afraid but entranced. This actually harkens back to the original novel and play, and it's a good change of pace for this film. Then Hook and Peter are fighting, and for a while it's brutal and fast-paced. He claws at Peter, drawing blood, and seems to be about to win, but then the crocodile arrives, and Hook is squealing for Smee, clambering up onto a rock with an expression of funny fear while the crocodile snaps up at him. And then we cut to Smee, who breaks the fourth wall and looks at the camera to say, "All a bit tragic, isn't it?" And I'm still unsure why. Hook does get some development when he sights Peter and Wendy at the fairy dance in the forest later that night. He says, "Oh, evil day," and sits down to watch them, mourning that he himself is all alone. Tinkerbell is sitting on a leaf nearby, and the two talk about how she is also alone, being banished. And then Hook is cunning again, lifting Tink on his claw and saying the two should talk as they depart. Some more is added to his character when Wendy goes into the captain's cabin, following the sound of a harpsichord Hook is playing while singing a song that he wrote himself. Over dinner, Hook talks to Wendy about her running away from home and about growing up. He says it's a barbarous business, full of inconvenience and pimples. Going on, he tells Wendy that Peter cannot love and convinces her to think about joining the pirates as a storyteller. This scene is remarkably good, but it is somewhat dampened by Smee's constant comedic interruptions and by lines given to Hook like pimples, which seem unnecessary. Another scene that ought to be deadly but turns a bit silly is the poisoning scene. Hook cannot reach the sleeping Peter, and we have a shot of him swiping down above the boy, and it does somewhat take away from the mood. Then the poison is poured into the medicine cup, and we are told by the narrator it was made of Hook's malice, jealousy, and disappointment, which, again, could be very sinister, but the mood has just been dropped a little bit by that swiping comedy. Back on the Jolly Roger, Hook does seem sincere when he offers the captured Wendy "There's still room for a storyteller," and all signs point to believing him. He also demands a moment's silence for the presumed dead Peter before the crew cheer. Soon, he is threatening Wendy, though, demanding the real story of Peter Pan, how he has survived the poison. He shoots 2 more of his own crew while holding the claw to Wendy's throat, but again, the moment is cut across by Smee breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera to say, "Very exciting, 2 dead already." And again, why? We get another hint at Hook's inner thoughts and turmoil when he learns how to fly, as he says quietly, "Alas, I have no happy thoughts." And then we get the final fight, and Hook manages to fly, and for the most part he and Peter are fighting seriously. The moment when Hook makes Peter drop from the air wounded and says, "You fly alone and unloved just like me," is brutal and amazing. However, they immediately ruin it with the famously ridiculous and scene, the famous "Pan, you're turning pink" scene. Gee. Then the fight picks back up, but this time we are shown to laugh at Hook. Peter literally runs all over him while Hook whines and complains like a petulant toddler. Then all the children are chanting, "Old, alone, done for," as the crocodile approaches below. Even in death, the man is not allowed seriousness. He tries to think of happy thoughts like ripping, lawyers, dentists, which again is funny, all while the chanting continues, until eventually he just stops trying, giving up and saying, "Old, alone, done for," and dropping into the mouth of the crocodile. And that's it. He does have cruelty and hints of depth in this one, but ultimately, in the conclusion, we're still supposed to be laughing with the children as he is hailed old, alone, and done for as he falls to his death. So what do we learn about this Hook then? Well, if you know what the tattoo is, then you can see he has a connection to Eton School. But not everyone will know that, so while it's a fun subtlety, it is a subtlety nonetheless. He is fixated on finding and killing Peter Pan. He makes his own poison. He can play the harpsichord and compose his own songs. He will kill his own men and will drown enemies. He has no happy thoughts. He may be occasionally fierce, but ultimately Peter can still run all over him, so really he's just old, alone, and done for. Moving into the 1991 film Hook. Well, even in the film called Hook, we do not get the scope and story that this man deserves, especially as the titular character. Putting aside, with extreme difficulty, all the problems with the plot and the scripting and the premise of this film, moving on. The fact remains that it has not done its title character any justice. He is shunted aside in favour of following a middle-aged businessman having some kind of midlife crisis, and that is our main character, who we follow through the entire film, by the way. We get snapshots of Captain Hook and sometimes an entire scene, but ultimately we return over and over and over to Robin Williams' Mr. Banning. And doesn't that rather beg the question, why call the film Hook when we barely scratch his surface? Why name a film after the character we don't get to know at all and are not following the journey of? Not to mention, Hook would be long dead if we are actually following the timeline of chronological events from the original story. The first time we meet Captain Hook in the film Hook is over 20 minutes into the film that his literal name is the title of. He is introduced by Smee with lines like, "Give him a hand, because he's only got one," before he emerges in front of the crew. This Hook is clearly supposed to be tired and grumpy, which we immediately see, But he does have some triumph to him as he declares victory by kidnapping the children Jack and Maggie. When Mr. Banning arrives, though, the captain is clearly disheartened. His war is cancelled. He is bored and disappointed. His bargain with Tink perks him up a little bit, but he doesn't seem to really believe that she can bring him any kind of pan. A few scenes later, we get possibly one of the most tasteless moments in the entire film, and in fact, possibly the entire history of Captain Hook adaptations. And at this point, I need to give you a content warning for unaliving oneself. And if you know what scene we're talking about, I'm sorry. So, Hook is in his cabin with Smee, talking about being bound by good form, and how he hates being disappointed, and he hates living in this flawed body, and he hates living on the Neverland, and he hates Peter Pan. Smee is not really paying attention, just eating noisily from a banquet. Hook pauses and says that he has had a sublime vision about all of the jagged parts of his life forming an epiphany. He says, "My life is over." He smiles and he walks over to a cabinet and opens it, picking out a word I don't think I could use on the internet, so we're going to go with pew pew. Hook says, "Goodbye, Smee." And Smee says, "Are you getting dramatic?" Smee tries to get his captain to play with a model island, while Hook says, "No stopping me this time, Smee." So this is established to have happened many times before, and somehow it feels like that's meant to be entertaining. Hook says, "My finger's on the trigger, don't try to stop me." Smee nods and says, "Oh no, not again." Hook points the pew-pew at his own temple and shakes his head saying, "Don't try to stop me, Smee, don't you dare try to stop me." And then he changes his mind and nods his head and in the same breath says, "Try to stop me. Try to stop me, Smee." Then, in one of the most ironic and tasteless lines of the entire scene, he says, "This isn't a joke, I'm committing unaliving myself." Smee manages to take the pew-pew off him, and Hook says, "Don't you ever frighten me like that again. What are you, some kind of sadist?" Then he sighs and says he wants to die. He says that there's no adventure here anymore. In yet another comedy moment coming straight afterwards, Smee turns around and says he's had an apostrophe, meaning epiphany. Then they make the plan to turn Mr. Banning's children against their father. That scene is a jumble of laugh, it's funny, laugh, ha, and one of the darkest topics you could possibly cover. I've said it many times before, and I will say it again, but I want to say it very, very clearly. That kind of joke about wanting to unalive yourself is not funny. Are we supposed to feel sorry for Captain Hook here? Clearly not. Are we supposed to believe him? I don't think so. As Smee munches on mouthfuls of food and calls him dramatic and says, "Oh no, not again." I cannot understand what they were trying to do here. Make Hook look stupid, maybe? Make us want him to pull the trigger? Make us laugh? And more importantly, why? At what? The rest of the film has moments of Hook seeming to genuinely enjoy getting to know Jack and making the baseball game and having him come over to his side a bit like a son. Then in the final fight, we get some parts that are dangerous, but the Lost Boys showing up with eggs and paint does kind of take some of the danger out of the situation. The best bit is probably when Hook kills Rufio, because it's a solemn moment that's unexpected and serious and allowed to be so. It has the time to breathe as Rufio dies, has his final line, and it's deadly serious. There's no coming back. That's it, the end. Rufio is allowed that, and he definitely deserves it. But it seems to be the only time they actually take a dark topic seriously in the entire story. Hook is given a sinister line when Mr. Banning and the kids try to leave, as he claims he will never stop hunting them down and even his descendants will be hunted, thus forcing the fight to continue to a conclusion. And in the moments where Hook actually gets to fight, properly fight, it is glorious and deadly. But then he's knocked over and stripped of his wig, and this is clearly supposed to be funny. I don't understand why though. He has to ask for his dignity back, meaning his wig, before he's about to be slain. And then he gets his claws stuck in the belly of the crocodile carcass, trips backwards over a clock, falls over, and as the crocodile descends upon him for him to get swallowed, his final line is, "I want my mummy," and then the crocodile burps. Overall then, what do we learn about this version of Captain Hook? He is old, he wears a wig. Both of these things are supposed to be funny for some reason. He hates his body and living on the Neverland and Peter Pan. He has tried to end his life on a number of occasions. But this is still funny, apparently. Oh, and sometimes he is dangerous when he fights, but there's no need to worry because we don't need to take him seriously. Part 2. What was given in the original story? Using both the play and the novel, let's look at what was given to us in the original story. The original Captain Jas Hook, presented to us by JM Barrie. First sightings. In the play, we hear the pirates singing, and Hook arrives being carried on a raft by his crew through the Neverland trees. His first line is, "Put back that pistol first, Starkey," as he twists his claw in the man who tried to shoot at Nibs. Hook knows the sound will draw Tiger Lily, which puts them all in danger. He tells his men to hunt for the children, and when he is certain they're all out of earshot, he confides in Smee about the crocodile chasing him and how he longs to rip Peter with the claw. The stage directions say that Captain Hook lays bare a lacerated heart during these lines, and he has dignity when he talks about clawing Peter Pan. Smee is described as somber, while they speak of the crocodile and the ticking inside it possibly running down, and Hook is a broken man as he confesses that this is his greatest fear. The first comedy moment we get is the mushroom. Hook was sitting on it and rises as it's hot, and he exclaims, "Odds bobs, hammer and tongs, I'm burning." They pull up the mushroom and learn about the underground hideout. They then plot to cook a poison cake to leave for the children, and are delighting in their plan when they hear the crocodile. Hook recognises it at once and totters off the stage, followed by Smee. This could be comedic, though I read it as stumbling, tottering, to stumble, fearful, and not silly or funny. He is, as we just learned, being followed everywhere by the crocodile determined to eat him. In the novel, our first sighting of Captain Hook is pretty similar. We are told that the pirates singing comes first, then Hook is described laying at his ease in a chariot pulled by his men. He is described as the blackest and largest jewel in that dark setting, and the only man the sea cook feared. That's Long John Silver. His eyes are of a profound melancholy, and in manner he has clear good breeding. He is described as a great storyteller, and never more sinister than when he is most polite. There is a slight elegance to his diction, even when swearing, and he had indomitable courage, and is said to only shy at the sight of his own blood. We also learn that the cigar holder he is smoking, which enables him to smoke two at the same time, was of his own contrivance. He kills Skylight swiftly for knocking into him. He has not even taken the cigars from his mouth, it says, as the deed is done. His first spoken line is, "Put back that pistol first," and again this is spoken to Starkey, who tried to shoot Nibs. His voice is also described as a black voice. When alone with Smee, Barrie describes how Hook heaved a heavy sigh, and perhaps because of the soft beauty of the night, felt a desire to confide in his faithful boatswain. He speaks long and earnestly about his missing arm, about wanting to kill Peter, and about the fear of the ticking clock inside the crocodile running down. He says that the crocodile liked the taste of his arm so much that it has followed him ever since, from sea to sea and land to land. After they've pulled up the mushroom chimney and planned the poison cake, the pirates depart from the sound of the ticking crocodile. The next time we see Hook in the play is at Maruna's Rock. He swims to the rock and is gloomy. He sighs 3 times before telling Smee and Starkey that the game is up because the lost boys have found a mother. When Smee asks what a mother is, Hook tries to explain, but the stage directions tell us he finds it more difficult than expected and looks around for an illustration. He spots the Neverbird in her floating nest and uses that as an example. The pirates plan to capture Wendy to make her their mother, and then Peter imitates Hook's voice and they have the guessing game. The guessing game is light-hearted for the audience, but for the pirates is serious business. They are alarmed by the voice of Hook over the water and think it's a spirit of some kind. The stage directions say there is a touch of the feminine in Hook, and that is what inspires them to try the guessing game, to work out what this voice is. The pirates ask if the voice is vegetable, mineral, animal, man, boy, and eventually work out that it's Peter, and the fight begins. We see a viciousness in Hook when he and Peter scale Maruna's Rock to breathe and begin fighting again. Peter waits for the pirate to be at the same level as him for fairness, but Hook swipes twice, taking the opportunity to claw at the boy. So distracted then by Peter being bested and rolling off the rock, Hook nearly doesn't notice the crocodile coming up behind him. He nearly steps into it and then ends up leaving, pursued by the crocodile. The novel is much the same. Hook sighs a hollow moan before revealing that the game is up. Then, when trying to explain mothers, he talks of the Neverbird, saying she would not desert her eggs even when the nest fell into the water. And then we get this line from the novel. There was a break in his voice, as if for a moment he recalled innocent days when, but he brushed away this weakness with his hook. The guessing game then happens, as does the fight. He claws unfairly at Peter on the rock, and then is seen in the water striking wildly for the ship, chased by the crocodile. The play and the novel share the same next scene. Hook leads his pirates in an unfair attack on Tiger Lily and her people as they guard the home under the ground. They wipe out most of them and capture the children. Hook notices that Slightly is larger than the other boys and uses his hollow tree to worm his way down, but he cannot get out the door at the bottom. The catch is too low, but he can reach over it. And seeing the sleeping Peter so close, seeming to grin mockingly at him in his slumber, Captain Hook looks around for another way to end him. He spots the medicine cup and adds 5 drops of his own poison to it. We also learn that Hook hates Peter not for cutting off his right hand, but for the boy's utter cockiness. He has a gloating look as he departs, but Barrie does discuss how Hook is not wholly evil. He talks of Hook's love for flowers, sweet music, and performing on the flute and harpsichord. He was stirred by the idyllic nature of the scene in that quiet hideout, but Peter slept seemingly so cockily that spurred Hook on. In the novel, Hook flings himself against the little door to no avail before sighting the medicine cup, which is an action that could be read as silly, but this scene is so clearly established as dangerous that it feels like more of a desperate, deadly attempt at success rather than something to giggle at. After all, if you were roused from your sleep by someone slamming into your door in the middle of the night trying to get you, I don't think you'd be laughing at them. In the final scene on the Jolly Roger, we see Hook walking the deck in thought. In both the play and the novel, the man should be in his hour of triumph, but cannot delight in it. Instead, he is dejected. The play's stage directions say, as if Peter's terrible oath, "Hook or me this time," had already boarded the ship. Barrie tells us Hook was so terribly alone, and talks about how even surrounded by his men, the man feels alone. We also learn that Hook is not his real name, and that to reveal it would set the country in a blaze. He tells us about Hook's Eton education. We learn that Hook finds it offensive to board a ship in the same garments in which you grappled her, and he still walks with the Eton school slouch posture. Most importantly, we learn about Hook's notions of good and bad form, which were hammered into him since school. They dog his thoughts and he cannot escape them. He worries over his own good form and that of others. He wonders if Smee has better form than him and delves into a spiral. One of the most important things we get in this scene is Hook's monologue. He speaks of fame being a glittering bauble, of how no little children love him, of how mortals envy him but find Smee lovable. In the novel, he contemplates clawing at Smee, worries that it would be bad form and ultimately cannot do it. We are also told that more than once Hook has cried over Smee, and the captain thinks of him rather a lot. Then we go into the children being told that they are to walk the plank. Hook offers John and Michael to join their pirate crew, which they very nearly accept. We learn that Wendy has been judging the pirates ever since she came aboard. She has written "Dirty Pig" in several of the windows, and Hook notices that she has seen his soiled ruff. Hook is about to get Wendy to watch the boys walk the plank, but the crocodile ticking approaches, and Barrie describes how very frightful it was to see the change come over the pirate captain as he heard the ticking. From terrible and dangerous, he fell down. But though being scared, his brain was still whirring, and Hook carefully crawled away from the ticking and told his men to hide him. When the ticking, which the reader/audience learns is just Peter, has stopped, Captain Hook composes himself and stands, sending for the cat-o'-nine-tails. Then the pirates get bewildered by members of their crew going into the cabin where Peter is secretly hiding, screaming out and getting slain. Soon enough, Peter reveals himself and the final fight begins. The pair, Hook versus Peter, fight tooth and nail. They're evenly matched, but Hook is described as not being able to see Peter very well, often just appearing like a mote of dust dancing in the sun. Peter has an opportunity to finish Hook when he loses his sword, but instead offers it back to the man. Wounded by this show of such good form, Hook fights from then on without hope. He describes Peter as a fiend and lights a powder magazine to set the whole ship blown to pieces. He does not care at this point that he will take everyone with him, just desperate to destroy Peter Pan. But Peter does best him, and then seems to forget their fight, sitting playing on his pipes on a barrel. The sight breaks Hook's heart, and he ends up flinging himself to the crocodile. In the play, his final line is Floriet Etona, which is Eton School's motto. And as he sees the crocodile below, he greets it as an old friend. In the novel, his final line is bad form, because he has finally got Peter to show bad form by kicking, and he falls content to the crocodile. So then, what do we learn about his character in his original form, the play and the novel? Well, he is an Eton-educated man stuck in a mindset of good and bad form. He is desperately lonely and confides only in Smee. He seems to be missing a mother figure and has difficulty remembering the concept of having one. His greatest fear is the clock in the crocodile running down. He loves flowers and sweet music. He can play instruments. He is most sinister when he is most polite. His eyes have a melancholy to them, as in fact does the man as a whole. He is deadly, a skilled swordsman, cunning and clever. His obsession to destroy Peter Pan has led him to desperate measures and kept him returning to the Neverland over and over again. He shies at the sight of his own blood. He is the only man that Long John Silver was afraid of. He has an elegance to his diction even when swearing. He has character quirks and flaws and deep emotions. He fears showing bad form above all. And by the end of his life, he has accepted his fate and throws himself to the crocodile. Part 3. Differences. The most glaring difference between the original version of Captain Hook and the adaptations seems to be how idiotic he's portrayed. There are comedic moments in the play and the novel, but never is the pirate captain supposed to be seen as a laughing stock. He may change at the sound of the crocodile, but he does not whimper and whine and cower like the Disney animation. Peter defeats the original Hook, but the pair are near equals in skill, and never does the flighty boy prod the pirate in the rear, tear his hat, or get the entire Lost Boys band to chant, "Old, alone, done for," as the man falls to the crocodile. The play and the novel show us a man who is nearing the end of his life. He is melancholy, and certainly choosing to end it all himself at the end. But at no point is this portrayed as funny in any way. Hook's original crew never ridicule him for size or feminine qualities or melancholy. He does only confide in Smee, but the sighs are heard by the others. He terrifies and commands them, even when they're beginning to doubt and wonder if the ship has been cursed. He could strike down any of them with ease, and they follow him as dogs to a master. His fear of the crocodile is respected, the crew crowding around to protect him, even closing their eyes to allow the man privacy when they believe the beast is approaching. And this begs the question, if his original crew, and even his enemies, Peter Pan, the Lost Boys, everyone, if they do not mock him or ridicule him for any of this, why do adaptations make the audience do it? Thinking about it, he is shown as mockable in all of them. His weaker moments are blown into silliness, comedy to laugh at, to alleviate the very real danger that the pirate captain is. In fights, he's given cartoonish flips and trips and falls, which lessen the weight of his skills and make him less impactful. Even in attempting to take his own life, he's treated as dramatic and something to laugh at. And then in his final moments, every one of them is comedic. From flailing and swimming away from the crocodile into the distance, to declaring himself old, alone, done for, or screaming and crying for his mummy. Perhaps this is all in an attempt to keep the adaptations suitable for a family audience, for children, keep everything PG and mild peril. But the stage play and the original novel were both suitable for children, and they had plenty of darkness and danger to them, not always coming from Hook. Perhaps adaptations just don't want to commit to making a baddie more morally complex. The villain must be bad and nothing else, but not too bad. His softer moments must be lessened, and his danger must be interspersed with comedy so that he isn't taken too seriously. But then again, there are so many morally difficult characters that audiences love and enjoy. We can laugh with them instead of always at them. They are still clever or dangerous or any number of things without being the butt of their own joke. They are still clever or dangerous or any number of things without being a fool to laugh at. Their attempts at evil may be thwarted, but it's a struggle, and somehow the audience sometimes even might doubt whether the good guys are going to win at all. Though perhaps showing more complex and compelling villains is a more modern phenomenon, so historically villains may have been more one note, just evil and blundering with it. But then, even in pantomime, villains have had more nuance than a lot of adaptations give Captain Hook. Another element to bear in mind is that written media is always going to have an easier time conveying more information about a character. When we read the novel, we are given in just a few sentences so much information about Captain Hook that in different media has to be given to us differently. But that being said, the stage play managed to do it, and visual media has been giving us complex characters for so long that doesn't actually feel like a get out clause. Surely a visual storytelling device should be able to give us the complexities of Hook's soul. Ultimately, the thing that most adaptations seem to miss is Hook's mind. His complicated tangle of emotions and nuances haunting him. His loneliness and isolation in a crowd. His skills and his wits, and most of all, his sincerity. This has been ignored in favour of a laughable villain who cannot possibly win even when wielding a sharp claw. His terror of the crocodile has been turned into blubbering cowardice. His all-consuming, built-up obsession with destroying Peter Pan, which has twisted and turned him into someone who is devolving into a spiral of desperation, making him do more and more terrible things, that has been turned into a whining old man swiping at a flying youth who always bests him in the end. His skills with weaponry and ability in combat have been changed into small slithers of action, followed immediately by silly trips and slips and falls. And perhaps the biggest change of all, his sorrow has been played for laughs. His melancholy and eventual taking of his own life deliberately has been changed into a reoccurring act of little consequence. Overly dramatic. And in the end, the silly fool must deserve to die, right? After the crocodile you go, old man, old, alone and done for, as we laugh as you squeal and cower for your mummy. The true Captain Hook is a man driven mad by his own obsession, which was in turn stamped into him by a rigid school education that refused to leave him. He was struck down from childhood, unable to recover, taught to fear and fret over good and bad form, leading to a spiral of worsening acts of desperation. He knows the attack on Tiger Lily and her people is unlawful, but he does it anyway because, like a madman, he is out of control. He is losing himself in his perceived only purpose to destroy Peter Pan. The Neverland itself eventually turns on him, and by the end of the tale, he has accepted his own dark fate and welcomes it. What a fascinating history, and yet we never get to see it. I'm still holding out hope for a wonderful adaptation of this character. One wild day, an adaptation will show him to the very best of his wholeness, showing his melancholy, his cruelty, his downward spiral of desperation and all of its roots, to explore and show his every nuance and crack and flaw and danger and sadness and his hurt as well. All of it. An entire character, not just a one-dimensional villain, not to be mocked or feared alone. All of it. A fleshed out man with a jagged past that claws at him until his final breath. Here's hoping, huh? To finish this video, I want to read to you from JM Barrie himself and some of the things that he has said about playing the role of Captain Hook. Hook must be played absolutely seriously, and the actor must avoid all temptation to play the part as if he was conscious of its humours. He is a bloodthirsty villain, all the more so because he is an educated man. He should have the manners of a beau. And finally, this line. Never do anything because there is an audience, but only and entirely because you think this is how the character in that fanciful world would do it. That brings us to the end of this video about Captain Hook and how his adaptations have failed him over the years. Any thoughts, theories or suggestions yourselves, chuck them in the comments down below, and if you would like to jump over to the TikTok page, you can pop in suggestions and I'll give you mini videos over there as well. Be amazing to yourselves, don't forget to hydrate, and until next time, be magical.